Welcome to writingalong.com. Today's episode is all about quitting your book, which is something a lot of people are inclined to do when, it just becomes too intimidating. You start out, you're all inspired, the world is your oyster in the literal sense of just being such a raw form of inspiration. Everything is possible when you're starting. And then it dies out, it goes away, it flies away. It was like a bird on your shoulder of inspiration just took off. Now, what then? Quit your book, or you put it on hold. But come on, that's quitting. You don't really have any intentions to get back at it when you really think about it. You haven't set a schedule, you haven't set a date, you haven't said anything like that. I'm here to talk about in this episode the context of quitting your book, when I think it's okay to, and what are the implications of that. Like, there's got to be some kind of consequence. There's got to be some kind of, and there is. You can't really live it down. You can. People will forget about it. If you've told people you're writing a book, some people will forget. They won't care. They got their own lives. They got their own stuff going on. I mean, you could be a celebrity and say, I'm going to write a book, and never do it. Who cares? You're still you. They're still them. The world goes around, but you yourself are going to remember. So just by stating it, it's like you've made this commitment public, even if just to yourself, public to your mind, to the forefront of your thoughts. And because of that, letting go of a book is really, really difficult. If you just have a bunch of unfinished books, I recommend you break them apart. I mean, save the stories, save the ideas. Sometimes you just cannot get back to a book, no matter how hard you try. You just cannot put yourself in that mental state anymore. You're past that. You're long past it. It's gone. Those writings that you have that are just disconnected, no endings, I recommend always try to end them. Even just make them into a short story. If you started a novel and it didn't work out, close it off. Make it a long, short story. Like, I know it sounds redundant, but no, go for it. If you are writing poems, make it a poetry selection, not a poetry collection. If you don't have enough, sometimes inspiration really does. It's just there to teach us things. Sometimes about like why was that stuff coming out of us? I mean, there had to have been some reason. Save all your writing. If you're going to quit your book, don't delete it. I mean, you can have your own archive, but just admit to yourself, like, I'm done with this. And don't leave it on the table as something that you just have to, let haunt you. In the sense, not in the good sense. I have that guide I put at the front of my videos for the 100 Days of Writing Advice series, but I say let it haunt your inbox. But sometimes your books, your unfinished books that you cannot get back to, I mean, that's painful. That hurts. Just, give it up. And it's a relief. It's a release, because then you can work on something else. And like I said, don't delete those stories, because you can use them in the future. Not verbatim, not word for word, not just copying and pasting, unless it fits, I guess. But if you want to do that, go for it. I'm not going to tell you not to, because then you will, right? But just be aware that you can always reuse certain stories, certain themes that you were bringing up. You can bring up again in something new that you're starting. When you're approaching a book, you want to have a sense of direction with it. You want to have a sense of reality with it. Otherwise, again, it's just going to just peter off, and you're going to give up, and it's another blunder that you're going to have to give up. You're going to have to quit so many things. Because if you don't actively say, hey, I'm done. I tried, it just didn't work out. It's not for me. It's not happening with this book. That kind of honesty is the kind of honesty you want as a writer in general. It's that kind of authenticity you want to bring to the page every single time. And the reader notices it. Yeah, it's kind of like in between the lines. It's not immediately available to their apparent and firsthand, perception of you, especially if they're just reading your words. They don't even see a picture of you as an author. But they're going to feel it. It's going to come through, because if you have that mental process already of being able to say when you're done with something, then as a writer, you'll be able to finish your chapters. You'll be able to finish your sentences. Everything ends a little more powerfully. It's not just some theory either. I mean, I've seen this work for writers who just start being as honest as they can, as brutally honest as they can. I don't mean just, pouring your deepest, darkest secrets out into the world. I mean, go for it if you want, but it's more of a self-honesty. It's more of a cohesiveness with your own self as a person, as a human being who is capable of putting words down onto pages. And it reflects everywhere. It reflects in the way you interact with people. It reflects in the way that what you do, what you perform, what you do on a daily basis. You can't avoid it. because it's coming from you. You're the same person. Your writing is a part of that. Don't externalize writing, because externalize as in like it's something outside. It's something that is not already in you right now, when in fact it is. You're sensitive to it. You're aware of it. And as a writer, you got to know that. You've really got to know that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with quitting your book. I really do not think there is. You can quit a short story. Like, you might just be a page into something, and you know it's not happening. You started off on the wrong foot. You might have done that a lot. You're going to have to go back on those stories and just say, hey, I'm done. I'm not going to finish them. I can't go back to them. And you're being true to yourself. You're being true to your writing. And that kind of stuff is often undervalued. That kind of stuff is really the most important part of your writing. But, instead, the flashy tips are a lot more appealing. Like, oh, look at 10 little writing hacks. It's not really that kind of stuff that helps your writing become clear. You're looking for clarity. Clarity doesn't always mean you use these perfect words. It has nothing to do with that kind of stuff. It just means that you're saying what you're feeling. You're saying what you mean. Much like you're having a conversation with someone. You want someone to say what's really on their mind. And as a writer, you're still saying stuff, just writing them. Same kind of thing. Same exact process. And don't undervalue, don't undercut don't sell yourself short in your abilities by just growing this collection of stuff that you're never gonna really take part in again. Sometimes it really is like that. You do have to create that disconnect, because if I started something 10 years ago and I was like 10 pages in, 20 pages in, 50 pages in, it's kind of hard to put myself in that place again, because I've changed so much. That's really why writing is, when you do it as not really a sprint, like a marathon, it's a whole, it's part of one thing. There's some kind of glue together just in the words, in the narrative, in the way you're talking, in the way you're speaking. Otherwise, it's too jarring. If we started here and then picked up years later over here, what's that gap? What happened to that? What was in between there? That should be the gap you experience between different books. If you've ever had a favorite author, they over the course of their books they change. How would you like it if you're reading the book and like a quarter of the way through it just completely everything changes? The tone, the voice of it it's like a different writer. It doesn't feel good because it's not connected. It's not a whole. You'll be creating an illusion. And that's why I'm saying, don't worry about exactly picking up where you left off. Book writing does, as a whole, depend on your sense of continuity. Your sense of continuity with time itself, your relation with time, and your awareness of it as it passes you, as it's in front of you, as it's this fluid motion, as it's relative, as it comes to you, and you divide it up. You make your decisions about it, and you mark it how you want to mark it as a writer, but just notice that's a real jump. It's this leap. Save the ideas. They're going to come in handy. It doesn't mean the ideas are outdated, but your voice changes. It just does. And it's not a bad thing at all. If you finish that book back then, you can see it two ways. You can see it any way you want. But two ways I'm putting forth right here as options. No, it wasn't meant to be. That works for some people. It's meant to be. It's not meant to be. Some people are like, come on, shut up. Like, what does that really mean? But some people really accept that and hold on to that. There's no wrong way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is like, wow, I really failed there. I didn't finish it. It's kind of a glaring error on my past. I mean, I care when I start stuff, I want to finish it. I didn't finish that. What does that say about me? And it's like this sense of this looming like background disappointment that you're not expressing to other people. Like, oh, so what was me? I didn't finish my book. No one cares. But for yourself, I mean, come on, that does speak to you. There's a sense of honor, a sense of realness in being able to say, I'm done. This book is over. What's next? Ask yourself that, though. All right, I'm done with this, but what comes after this? What comes next? You're freeing yourself. You're opening, like I said, opening the door to new ideas, to new visions, to new sights, to new observations, to new perceptions, your new voice. And always be conscious of that continuity effect, that you don't want to have that or find that later in your writing. You don't want to regret what could have been a great story otherwise. It doesn't mean you're abandoning the ideas as a whole. You're moving on. You're accepting it. And that in itself is, it's like you did accomplish it because you finished. You want to finish what you start. As a writer, that's what separates you from someone who just writes things down versus a writer. A writer finishes things, and it's not that hard. It's really not in the practical sense. You just gotta say, all right, it's over. What? Okay. Next challenge, next book, next writing. You don't want to quit everything you start now. You definitely don't want to do that. But I'm saying stuff in the past, let it go. Just let it go. Don't delete it. All right. Definitely don't. Check out How to Write a Book in 30 Days on my website. It's a completely free guide, just everything you need to get started as far as book writing. Stuff you won't really find all the time on Google, at least the way it's elaborated on. It's really going to help you with your book, and you deserve to write one in your lifetime. I will see you around, and thank you for stopping by on this video. I will see you on the next episode. Thanks again for stopping by.